Trawler, fishing vessel that uses a trawl, a conical net that snares fish by being dragged through the water or along the bottom. Trawlers vary according to the method of towing the net. On side trawlers, the trawl is set and hauled over the side with power winches or manually by a large crew. Outrigger trawlers drag 1 or 2 nets from long booms extending from each side. Stern trawlers are powerful vessels that are often built with ramps for hauling heavy catches up the stern onto the working deck. Powered by engines of up to 5,000 horsepower, modern trawlers drag huge nets that must be hauled by rope winches and large net drums or reels. Large trawlers can be floating factories, cleaning and freezing the fish for processing ashore. Factory ship, originally, a large ship used in whaling, but now, more broadly, any ship that is equipped to process marine catches for various consumer uses. It most commonly serves as the main ship in a fleet sent to waters a great distance from home port to catch, prepare, and store fish or whales for market. The present-day factory ship is an automated, greatly enlarged version of the early whaler that sailed into remote waters and processed only whale oil on board, discarding the carcass. More modern ships converted the entire whale into usable products. The efficiency of these ships and the increasingly effective methods that were used to hunt whales threatened a number of whale species with extinction and necessitated moratoriums on the hunting of most species. This led to a precipitous decline in the use of factory ships for whaling, but their use for fishing has grown dramatically. Such countries as Russia and Japan maintain extensive fishing fleets centered on factory. Trawling is one of the most common methods of fishing. Trawl nets are designed to be towed by a boat through the water column, midwater trawl, or along the seafloor, bottom trawl. Trawl nets are shaped like a cone or funnel with a wide opening to catch fish or crustaceans and a narrow, closed, cod end. Trawls can be used at various depths and nets differ by their mesh size. Bottom trawling is a widespread industrial fishing practice that involves dragging heavy nets, large metal doors, and chains over the seafloor to catch fish. Although previous studies have documented the direct impacts of bottom trawling on corals, sponges, fishes, and other animals, an understanding of the global impact of this practice on the seabed remained unclear until now. The first calculation of how much of the seabed is resuspended, or stirred up, by bottom trawling shows that the sediment mass is approximately the same as the amount of all sediment being deposited on the world's continental shelves by rivers each year, almost 22 gigatons. Understanding regional and global magnitudes of resuspended sediment is essential for analyzing the environmental consequences of trawling for continental shelf habitats and their associated seafloor and open ocean ecosystems. The scientists compared natural causes of resuspension, waves and currents, with bottom trawling-induced resuspension and found new ways to look at and into the seabed to document the effects of bottom trawling. Bottom trawling can produce vastly different effects on different types of seabed sediment, such as sand, silt, or mud, each with different ecological consequences. Trawling destroys the natural seafloor habitat by essentially rototilling the seabed. All of the bottom-dwelling plants and animals are affected, if not outright destroyed, by tearing up root systems or animal burrows. Resuspending bottom sediment changes the entire chemistry of the water, including nutrient levels. Resuspended sediment can lower light levels in the water and reduce photosynthesis in ocean-dwelling plants, the foundation of the food web. The resuspended sediment is carried away by currents and often lost from the local ecosystem. It may be deposited elsewhere along the continental shelf, or in many cases, permanently lost from the shelf to deeper waters. Changing parts of the seafloor from soft mud to bare rock can eliminate those creatures that live in the sediment. Species diversity and habitat complexity are directly affected when trawling changes the physical environment of sand, mud, This fishing method describes a trawl towed in mid-water between two vessels to target pelagic fish. The height of the net in the water column can be changed by altering vessel speed and length of wire out. The nets can be very large, as big as 240 meters wide and 160 meters deep, but the mesh size in the mouth of the trawl are huge, sometimes as big as 50 meters long. As all pelagic trawls are towed in mid-water with no intentional contact with the seabed, there should be negligible impact on the seabed environment. Very occasionally the gear may be towed very close to the seabed, when there may be the odd time that the wing end weights contact the seabed but very minimal contact. The skipper is very careful not to allow his gear to get too close to the seabed, as, usually, the gear does not have any ground gear to protect the bottom of the trawl. These trawls are very species-specific in operation. The large meshes in the mouth of the trawl will only herd shoaling species into the trawl. The mesh size in the cod end and extension of the trawl is set to suit the physical size of the target species. Much of the selectivity in this method of trawling is done by the skipper's experience in knowing what area his target species is likely to be in through past experience, time of year and reports from other vessels in the area. Many of the pelagic species are targeted during their annual migration routes, and as each species has different migration patterns, with experience the skippers know where to go for specific species at different times of the year. Also, they can usually differentiate between the species by how the shoal shows up on the echo sounder and sonar screens in the wheelhouse. Occasionally some of the larger demersal species may encounter a pelagic trawl when they move up in the water column feeding on small pelagic fish. Most demersal fish that may stray into the path of a pelagic trawl will easily escape through the large meshes in the forward part of the trawl. Very occasionally there may be a bycatch of some cetaceans that enter the trawl chasing the shoals of pelagic feed fish. In some areas where certain methods of pelagic trawls were prone to this, the fishing method has been banned to prevent cetacean bycatch. Some fisheries have employed rigid grids to guide these large mammals out of the trawl unharmed. These devices are not popular with fishermen as they can be unwieldy to handle on board the vessel. There are acoustic pingers being developed to fit to trawls to prevent cetaceans entering the trawls. Pelagic trawling is a method of towing a trawl at any height in the water column between the surface and seabed. It is generally used to target shoaling species such as mackerel, herring and sprats. The beginnings of pelagic trawling come from demersal trawling, where they tried to make a large net and tow it between two vessels and lift it off the seabed. Gradually the mouth of the trawl was made bigger by the inclusion of large meshes in the mouth of the trawl. With the advancement of underwater acoustic technology by the military in the way of echo sounders and sonars and the adoption of this into the fishing industry, it became possible to find shoals of pelagic fish and set the nets at the correct height within the water column to catch these species. The introduction of lightweight curved trawl doors and the use of acoustic measurement sensors on the trawl enabled the new design pelagic trawls to be towed by one vessel as a single trawl. Nowadays much of the pelagic trawling activity, both single and pair trawl, is done by modern powerful vessels equipped with state-of-the-art electronics to find and track the shoals of pelagic fish. However, throughout the UK and the EU there are many smaller-scale pelagic fisheries undertaken by smaller, less sophisticated vessels. Modern pelagic trawls have a much larger opening than demersal trawls, some as large as 160 meters deep and 240 meters wide. This is achieved by having very large meshes in the mouth or forward sections of the trawl. Pelagic trawls tend to be constructed using 4 panels, a top, a bottom and 2 side panels to enable them to achieve a much greater height than demersal trawls. The trawls can be either rectangular in cross-section or square, where all 4 panels are the same size. Depending upon the size of trawl, the individual meshes in these leading sections of the trawl can be anything from 5 meters up to 50 meters in length. The mesh size is gradually decreased as they get closer to the cod end of the trawl. The cod end mesh size being dictated by legislation and/or the size of the Bottom trawling includes several different types of fishing gear that use a cone-like net with a closed end that holds the catch. The net is towed by 1 or 2 boats and held open by boards or a metal beam. These devices often make contact with the seabed. Many commonly eaten species can be caught using bottom trawls. These include whitefish like cod, haddock, pokie and hake, and flatfish such as halibut and sole. Prawns, shrimp and squid can also be caught through this method. Bottom trawling is an efficient way to catch large quantities of fish and shellfish that live on the seafloor, which are needed to feed a growing global population. Around a quarter of all wild-caught seafood is caught via this method every year. Fish are an important source of nutritious food, with over 3 billion people relying on our oceans for a major source of protein and other nutrients such as omega-3 fatty acids, iron and vitamin B12. Bottom trawl gears come into contact with the seabed, and this can cause damage to the habitats and marine organisms found there if fishing activities are not well managed. As seabed habitats vary throughout the ocean, the impact of bottom trawling depends on the type of habitat encountered and the species present. Habitats that contain fragile, long-lived or slow-growing species such as corals and sepins are particularly vulnerable and should not be trawled as they may be unable to recover. However, some habitats have more resilience, such as sandy or muddy seabeds in shallow waters that are regularly exposed to disturbance from strong waves and storms. Bottom trawling is also associated with high levels of unwanted catch, or bycatch, as the nets used can be unselective. This can lead to accidental capture of non-target species, or young or undersized fish. It is important that such impacts are carefully managed and reduced through measures such as gear modifications to improve selectivity. Can the seabed impact of bottom trawling be reduced? Damage to habitats can be prevented by avoiding bottom trawling in areas with more sensitive habitats. Seabed mapping and habitat surveys are used to detect areas that contain sensitive habitats and species and identify where fishing activity overlaps, using vessel monitoring and tracking data (VMS). This enables fisheries to avoid these areas and adapt their practices to minimize the impact of any interactions. Areas containing more sensitive habitats can be closed to fishing altogether. Closures are often introduced by governments or regional fisheries management authorities, or fisheries may decide to close regions voluntarily. For example, the Scottish trawl fleet immediately closed an area to its vessels following the discovery of vulnerable sepins rather than waiting for the region to be designated as a marine protected area. Action can be taken to protect untrawled regions from bottom trawling. The South African hake trawl fishery voluntarily froze its trawl footprint in 2007 and can only operate in specific zones that have already been trawled. Agreeing to operate within these boundaries is now a condition for obtaining a fishing license. Impacts on habitats can also be reduced by modifying the gear used and how it is operated. This can include limiting the weight and size of gear and decreasing the number of contact points between gear and seabed. For example, rubber discs or balls can be added to the ropes that are pulled across the seafloor either side of the net. Many fisheries modify their fishing gear to reduce bycatch. Understanding which non-target species are at risk of being caught, and how to avoid them is also key. Bycatch reduction devices are an effective way to allow large or unwanted species to escape trawl nets. Many cold water prawn fisheries, such as the Scotian Shelf Northern Prawn Trawl Fishery in Canada, have reduced unwanted catch of groundfish such as cod and haddock by adding a grid-like exclusion device, Nordmore grate, to trawl nets. These prevent the fish from entering the cod end, while allowing the smaller prawns to pass through and funnel them towards an escape hole in the top of the net. The use of exclusion devices has also virtually eliminated turtle bycatch in the Australian northern prawn fishery. This fishery is also carrying out research to understand how and when sawfish bycatch is occurring and identifying Bottom trawl fisheries can be certified as sustainable if they meet the requirements of the MSC Fisheries Standard and pass an assessment carried out by an independent third party. Fisheries using bottom trawl gear can only achieve MSC certification if they can demonstrate they do not cause serious or irreversible damage to seabed habitats and biodiversity. During an assessment, fisheries must provide evidence to show there is an understanding of the habitats encountered and the impact of fishing activity. This can include seabed surveys and mapping to identify different habitats and where fishing overlaps. Fisheries should avoid using trawl gear in areas where sensitive habitats have been found. However, if there is a chance that gear may interact with such habitats, fisheries will be required to demonstrate that effective, precautionary measures are in place. The fishery must also provide quantifiable evidence to show that impacts on endangered, threatened and protected species, and out-of-scope species, birds, mammals, amphibians and reptiles, are being effectively managed and minimized. Measures must also be in place to prevent gear loss and reduce the impact that any lost gear may have on the marine environment. As well as fishing healthy populations, fisheries must show they are managing their impacts on habitats and other marine species. How does MSC certification drive improvements in sustainability? MSC certification incentivizes bottom trawl fisheries to reduce their impact on the marine environment. Not only do many fisheries need to make improvements to meet our standard, but many are required to continue improving after certification. This study raises serious concerns about the future stability of continental shelves, the very source of the vast majority of the fish we consume, said geological oceanographer and lead author Ferdinand Oberle, now a visiting scientist at the USGS and previously with the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. As part of the study, scientists developed a new, universal approach to calculate bottom trawling-induced sediment resuspension that gives marine management a new and important tool to assess the impact from bottom trawling. Previous studies characterized the seabed as either trawled or untrawled. But with these novel methodologies it was possible to show systematically a range of bottom trawling-induced changes to the seabed and classify them in accordance with how often the seabed was disturbed by bottom trawlers. Not all bottom trawls are created equal, just as no one fishing method is universally sustainable. When considering the sustainability of a fishery, we adhere to three main considerations. In the case of the West Coast bottom trawl fisheries, we feel they pass the test on all 3 points. The Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch program rates bottom trawl called rockfish, petrale sole, Dover sole and other groundfish species as either best choice or good alternative. The Marine Stewardship Council awarded West Coast groundfish species with a sustainability certification back in 2014. The Environmental Defense Fund wrote about the significance of this achievement here. Dragging a fishing net through the water column or along the seafloor can be unsustainable if done so irresponsibly. But done so with proper management and careful placement, trawling can be very sustainable. Consider what would happen if you moved all the cars and trucks on the road right now off-road. It would be chaos. All those tires would rip up grass and dirt that was not built for that kind of exposure. But if you left the cars on the asphalt roads they were meant for, the impacts would be absorbed as they are every day on American roadways. The same can be said for bottom trawls. Trawlers on the West Coast only drag their nets over sandy, high-wave action seafloor habitats that are used to seafloor movement and upheaval, and are able to withstand this kind of fishing effort. If you drag a net through a coral reef then of course there will be negative impacts, but the laws for West Coast bottom trawl vessels strictly prohibit fishing in such areas. In addition, every bottom trawl vessel must have a federal observer on board for every trip to make sure all fishing laws are followed. Some seafood companies have chosen to abandon West Coast bottom trawl fisheries for sustainability reasons, opting to only sell hook and line landings. We love hook and line fisheries too, but they simply cannot feed everyone. Hook and line fish is also expensive and we believe access to affordable, sustainable, healthy, local seafood should be